Welcome back. Ashwini Vaishnaw, the Union Minister, spoke exclusively to NDTV on the data protection rules and said that citizens' rights is at the core of these particular rules and that children's safety is central to the rules of this particular draft. Listen in to that conversation.
Hello everybody. In a significant policy milestone that can in some ways impact the way we store our data, we consume our data, and also how safe our children feel on the internet. The Centre has come up with its draft rules on the data protection law. And to talk about this, the implications of this on India as a nation that safeguards its citizens' privacy, we have with us the man who is at the center of this all, Ashwini Vaishnaw, the Minister for INB and also IT. Thank you, Mr. Vaishnaw, for speaking to NDTV. You've been at the center of this, sir. I remember you in some ways making it clear that consultation is the way forward. There's been a lot of back and forth, but finally the rules are here, the draft rules are here. There are talks, there are provisions for penalties, there are provisions for making our children feel safer on the internet. But how is this going to impact the common Indian out there on the street?
Our digital economy is today a very significant part of our total economy. It's very important that a legal structure and a legal framework which is appropriate for the digital age is put in place. That's why the DPDP Act was very important, with the very wide-ranging consultations and a lot of thinking through. We came up with an act which was basically a good balance between innovation and regulation. We have another geography, the European template, which is very heavy on regulation. In our country, we have a very big innovation ecosystem. So we created this act where basically the innovation and regulation is balanced first. Second, digital world changes very fast. Something happens almost every week, something new comes up. So our approach has to be pragmatic. So in a very pragmatic approach where the citizens' rights are properly protected and at the same point of time the innovators and the people who want to develop new solutions, they find that opportunity to work. So it's a very pragmatic kind of act. The rules which are framed, as you know, in our legal structure, Parliament passes the act, Executive prepares the rules and then places it before the Parliament for final approval in the sense. So the rules have been framed after extensive consultations, and as you might have seen in the act is envisaged to be implemented completely in a digital way. It is going to be digital by design. The Data Protection Board will function in a purely digital way. Okay. So this is a unique approach that our Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji has always given us the guidance that we should be making the lives of our citizens easier. So in this case, with this experiment, we'll have a fully digital way of implementing a new law.
Right.
So in last 1 year, we have prepared the entire digital framework, the digital platform, the entire processes which will go with it. That entire thing has been properly prepared, and after preparing and after extensive consultation with various stakeholders, we have come out with these rules.
Right, sir.
And these have been uploaded for consultation.
Right.
Next 45 days, we'll have consultation with every stakeholder who wants to give an opinion, and then we'll come up with the final draft.
So what happens after this? Till 18th of February, people will keep giving their feedback, and then will there be another round of consultations? When does the final law come into place?
So we are doing it in a very structured way. One, any stakeholder who wants to give a suggestion, give an opinion, we have created a portal for that, created a mechanism for that. Second, we'll have a very structured way of taking feedback and consultation with the identified stakeholders from the industry, from civil society, from government organizations, from a variety of different organizations, so that this is properly, thoroughly checked, everybody's views there, properly incorporated. See, at this stage, the digital economy is growing at a double-digit rate, right? Whether it is manufacturing, whether it is our Digital India initiatives, whether the way the country's processes are getting digitalized. It's very important that whatever we do, one, should not cause any disruption. Two, it should protect the citizens' rights. Three, it should leave that scope for innovation.
Right.
Four, it should be very light in terms of the regulatory or the compliance burden that comes. Okay. So very carefully all these things have been balanced.
Right. Mr. Vaishnaw, we are talking about fiduciaries here. A lot of these tech giants are seen as people who collect a lot of data. How are you looking at getting them compliant with these laws?
See, most of the people that we have worked with so far in the industry, they are all prepared for complying with this law. And we have very actively encouraged them to be prepared. For example, in this act, we have said that every notice, every document has to be in all the languages which are there in the 8th schedule of the Constitution. So that means people have to be prepared for that. So we prepared the entire industry for that kind of transition.
Right.
So that change, that transition management is happening in parallel.
Will they be given some time to sort of transit?
Yes, there will be a 2 years transition time, because this will be applicable to government organizations also. So in a sense, because it's a very wide ranging big reform, a very big transition, so there will be enough time for transition. We'll also take care of awareness of the people. We'll organize within the MSME sector, within the industrial groups, within the tech, within the non-tech, within the citizens groups. Everywhere we'll try to create awareness programs.
Right, sir. I was looking at some interesting aspects. There are provisions which say that if I'm not present on an e-commerce platform or social media platform for a considerable amount of time, the data needs to get deleted after giving me a certain warning. What happens to entities who are not compliant with that? Are there penalties in place, which I've been reading that there are huge penalties also? How do you expect people to look at this?
See, we have created a structure where the penalties are very graded. In a very graded manner, and depending upon the nature, gravity, duration, type, repetitive nature, and the efforts that the data fiduciary has taken for preventing any breach. Looking at all those things, penalty is graded into 7 different formats. So it's a very graded and a very, I would say, a very objective way of looking at penalties. So penalties would be there for people who do not comply with this. And it's needed also, because end of the day it's citizens' right of privacy which is being sought to be protected in this act.
Right. So data localization is back. It was part of one of the initial drafts. Do you see that as one of the pet peeves of these tech giants, and how are you looking at addressing that?
It's very clearly incorporated in the law that every sector which needs to localize data will be given that facility, right?
Okay.
So if you look at the section 16, where we had incorporated in the law which was passed by the Parliament, the central government may by notification restrict the transfer of personal data by a data fiduciary for processing to such country or territory outside India as may be so notified. For example, even today the Reserve Bank of India prohibits the transfer of financial payment data to any other geography. It has to be localized. So when we drafted this act and we took it to the Parliament, we had seen the best practices in the world. Best practices are data transfer in a trusted manner, where the other side is also protecting the data the way it would have been protected as per this law. There is an adequate protection system, adequate legal system by which if our citizens are harmed, they can get the justice, right? And wherever there is a sectoral requirement, their data localization becomes mandatory. To make sure that this is done in a very non-disruptive manner, we have created a structure of a committee. So the rules cannot be different from the law. So whomsoever is reported that it is back, it was not there in the law. The law exactly said that yes, there will be some restrictions depending upon the sector, depending upon the nature of the data, and depending upon the geography. Those restrictions can be put, and to make it very harmonious and non-disruptive, we have created this structure of a committee in which any sector which wants to put a restriction, they all sit together, there is a stakeholder consultation, and based on that consultation, the regulations can be brought.
Right. I know you've answered this before, sir, but when it comes to the Data Protection Board, how sure are we, making it about independent? Because there are also reasonable safeguards that the rules also say, but the government is also seen as a fiduciary that collects a lot of data. So how are we looking at citizen safety?
See, independence comes primarily from the legal protection, legal structure. The law is very clear in defining the roles and responsibilities and the rights and duties of the Data Protection Board. The law is very clear on how the selection process will be. Selection process will be fair, very independent, and the board will function in a very purely digital way, in a very independent way, prescribed exactly as per the law and the rules under that, right? So the independence in that sense is guaranteed by the Parliament of India.
Okay, and something of utmost concern to all parents, children's safety is, in some ways being seen as very central to these draft rules. Parental concern will be verified, and they'll also be looking at digital lockers for that. But there will always be some workarounds and loopholes. Children will find ways to be on the internet. How are you looking at making it foolproof?
See, this is a big challenge that many countries are facing. So when we drafted the law, we created a structure which is pragmatic in the sense that wherever there is a digital data available relating to children, for example, school admission data, for example, health card data, for example, any bank account data, those are basically verified data points. So using that data points, using virtual tokens, using digital technology that we have in our country, can we create a seamless and simultaneously highly verifiable way of seeing whether the person's age is 18 or below, right? So using that structure and using the technological landscape that we have today, we have created in the rules a series of measures by which proper verification can be done. Many examples are given in the Rule 10, where different types of cases are written, and from our understanding and our discussions with the industry, it clearly emerges that this will evolve into a template which other countries will also follow.
Right. So my last question to you, sir, do you finally see Indians being serious about privacy, and do you see the world taking India as a nation that's concerned, that's serious about its citizens' privacy after this law comes into place? And what are the best practices that you looked at before framing these rules?
That's a very good point. And see, our approach, India's approach, has been an approach where we have been able to balance that innovation and regulation requirement. We have been able to provide citizens protection while still keeping that technological change in mind. We have been able to create a legal structure which is very simple, easily understandable. Our Prime Minister always says that laws should be easily understood by the common citizens. So we have been able to create that kind of structure. We have brought in the importance of our regional languages. So Schedule 8th Schedule of the Constitution has been brought into this law. So everything will be so that even a citizen who is not as educated or as aware of the digital world, she is also able to get the benefits. Some innovations that we had kept, and I'm sure you are aware, we had always, throughout this act, we had used she, which denotes,
yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So such simple innovations which shows how much importance we give to every section of the society, yes, have been kept in.
That was a very progressive one. I think the best part of this. Thank you so much, Mr. Vaishnaw. Ashwini Vaishnaw, the IT Minister, making it very clear that the draft rules of the Data Protection Act are a balancing act between innovation and regulation, and making the rules very accessible to the common man and women of the country. With camera persons Rakesh and Pavan, this is Vasudha Venugopal for NDTV.